I'm back after a week of sickness and also devastation from the Phillies/Eagles simultaneous meltdowns. The NFL had a kind of pedestrian weekend. The NBA is about to start, and I'll be talking about that on my podcast with Luke Backman.
Imagine he's just he has a bad stretch of games. He's like, oh, the Monks, they led me wrong, man. I shouldn't have done. He just throws the Monks.
But thank God we have a World Series on our hands. Starting Friday, the respective championship series that got us to this matchup of Dodgers versus Blue Jays could not have been more different. The Dodgers swept the Brewers, with the fourth game being courtesy of the greatest performance in baseball history from Shohei Ohtani. And the ALCS went the distance, 7 games, with historic moment after historic moment, propelling Toronto to the Fall Classic and eventually devastating Seattle. The anticipation of this year's series has me kind of reminiscing about some of the great heavyweight baseball bouts of my childhood. I feel like last year's World Series kind of opened things back up for an epic World Series again, because it was Dodgers-Yankees and it felt so huge, despite the fact that it only lasted 5 games. So let's take a little trip down memory lane and remember why baseball can really be the best postseason and championship round sport. The Giants win 3 in 5. This was my childhood. I'm not even a Giants fan. I have no connection to the team. I can name the starting 9 from at least one of the years. Okay, Bumgarner on the mound. You can do Lincecum or Matt Cain, Sergio Romo, Brian Wilson closing, Buster Posey, Brandon Belt, Marco Scutaro, Brandon Crawford, Pablo Sandoval, Hunter Pence, Angel Pagan, Gregor Blanco. I don't know which year that is, probably the middle year. Those were the guys, though. These guys just meant business in the postseason every other year. And I want to point out the opponents in these World Series too, by the way. In 2010, it's the Texas Rangers. Josh Hamilton in the middle of a generational run. Adrian Beltre, a future Hall of Famer. Nelson Cruz, Ian Kinsler, Michael Young, Cliff friggin' Lee. 5 games for the Giants. Night. Shout out to Edgar Renteria and Cody Ross. In 2012, it's the Tigers. Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown that year. Giants don't care. Sergio Romo's going to strike out Miggy, looking to bring out the brooms. And in 2014, one last ride for the core of the team, the Royals, who would win it all the next year, gave them all they could handle, but the Giants prevailed in 7 from an all-time World Series pitching performance from Mad Bum. There was just something ethical about this team. Something right, something fair. The Cardinals and Dodgers had always kind of been the darlings of the National League, so seeing the Giants step in and be that was cool. And speaking of the Cardinals, the David Freese game. In one of the in-between years of the Giants dynasty, the Cardinals and Rangers met in an all-time World Series. It went the full 7, but Game 6 is the stuff of postseason legend. I said earlier in the video that Shohei Ohtani's Game 4 performance in the NLCS this year was probably the best baseball performance ever, and I think that's true, but what David Freese did in the 2011 World Series Game 6 is just the stuff of legend. Down 3-2 in the series and down to their last strike, David Freese sent the game to extra innings with a 2-run triple off the right field wall and had an all-time aura moment kneeling at third base after sliding in safely. After a Josh Hamilton 2-run home run, not to discount his greatness, the Cardinals rallied again in the bottom of the 10th, and Freese brought it home in the 11th with Joe Buck's iconic call, a nod to his father, who was the Cardinals' longtime broadcaster.
Freese hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
The Cardinals sealed the deal in Game 7, but Game 6 is truly one of the best overall sports moments of the century. The Royals happened. The Royals played in 2 consecutive World Series, winning the latter in 2015. They were a group that this year's Blue Jays seem reminiscent of. Contact hitters. They did a lot of small ball, a lot of bunting, a lot of sacrificing. They were gritty, that kind of thing. They were kind of starless, too. Just a solid all-around group with a young Salvador Perez who would become a real superstar. Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Alex Gordon, Lorenzo Cain, all just solid, good players in their primes. To me, how I remember this World Series was that it felt like it was a big deal because the Mets were in it. I don't know if you're familiar with Mets fans, but when they're good or when they're bad, it is everybody's problem. That's a joke, but this World Series always stands out to me because the Royals cashed in on a short window and the Mets went right back to being awful. It's kind of easy to forget because of that. 2016, maybe the best World Series ever, maybe just of the century. It felt like the biggest deal in the world when the Cubs broke the longest World Series drought. And I think it just was. They were an incredible team with phenomenal young talent at the time in Chris Bryant and Javi Baez, plus veterans like Rizzo and Zobrist. They had incredible pitching staff with Jake Arrieta and Kyle Hendricks. It was a special, special team. The Cubs' run to the World Series probably took a decade off of the life of every Chicago resident, but it was totally worth it to see Anthony Rizzo pocket that ball. I said this might have been the best World Series ever. Blown 3-1 leads were a big deal at the time in 2016, maybe the number one sports meme of 2016. That's exactly what the Cleveland mascot redacted baseball team did. And yet they almost saw it through. Francisco Lindor put in an incredible postseason. Rajai Davis hit a home run off of Aroldis Chapman, so clutch it rivals David Freese on the clutchometer. Ben Zobrist won World Series MVP. It's important to reiterate that baseball is the sport for random role players winning you the biggest possible games. There's really nothing like it. Well, that was a fun trip down memory lane. You'll notice I didn't include any Astros or Dodgers championships in this video, and that's because I have a high moral and ethical standard. But I will say it would be cool to see Ohtani do something special in the World Series after Freddie kind of stole the show last year. But what would be really, really cool would be to see the Jays slay the Giants. Enjoy the Fall Classic, everybody. Like and subscribe to the podcast, and see you next week.